International break is here, and it is one of the worst times being a football fan. And yeah, it's worse because you really miss Premier League football, irrespective of whichever club you follow. I don't even know if, apart from Arsenal fans, how many different club supporting fans watch my content. But more importantly, here I'm definitely going to talk about in this episode. We've got this Gunner blog exclusive update about how exactly have Arsenal looked into the transfer window and gone about with it. We're not just going to talk about that, we're just going to talk about Arsene Wenger's recent talks, and more importantly, what about the Qatari takeover? Is it real, or is it another hype train just like the Spotify owner Daniel Ek was? So, for the starters, well, Arsene Wenger says not being able to go there, no longer going to the matches, no longer living my passion for the club was very hard, very brutal. Arsenal was a matter of life and death to me, and without it, there were some very lonely, very painful moments. Well, Arsene believes that Arsenal, he says, on his plans to reduce the number of international breaks down to one or two. He says, I don't think the footballing world wants qualifiers last a year and a half anymore. We can just as well concentrate them over 4-5 weeks. Love these kind of interesting stuffs that is actually coming on. So, what about the Qatari takeover? Well, here's an article of Football.London that expresses the likelihood of, is there a Qatari takeover likely to happen? Because Arsenal fans that don't like what they are seeing from the Cronkies at all. So, how exactly is going to happen? So, the Fan Brands team recently spoke to Qatari football expert Mitch Freely and Ahmed Hashim, who both concurred that this was most likely a social media ploy. Freely described it as for show. However, this has not stopped supporters from continuing to hope for a bid, and therefore further investigation into the likelihood was necessary. Speaking to Ben Jacobs, a sports journalist with years of expertise in the field, the Fan Brands team learned of several reasons as to why such a takeover would not happen. Jacobs opens by firstly breaking down the blunt reality of a fanfare spawned from what is simply a tweet on social media. He says the main reason a Qatari takeover of Arsenal won't happen is there is no substance to the talk beyond a glib tweet from Sheikh Khalifa bin Hamad Al Thani. He does have royal links and is the former president of Al Arabi, so there is some football pedigree there too. Yet he has nowhere near the personal wealth to buy Arsenal. Any takeover would also go through Qatar Sports Investment, and if Al Thani knew of or was part of such a bid, he would not be tweeting cryptic clues. Qatari sports investments are very secretive and rarely allude to investments until they are 100% done. Well, the second insight is a bitter pill for Arsenal supporters to hear. However, it is bluntly true. Arsenal's value of a club is arguably the worst it has been since KSC became involved in 2007. Jacob says there is no value in buying Arsenal. A prospective Qatari owner would be inheriting a strong but relatively restrictive brand and ultimately paying way above the odds. Stan Kroenke seemingly wants at least 2.15 billion, so would stand to make a cool 1.15 billion profit if successful. No Qatari investor or group like Qatari Sports Investment would pay that kind of price simply for vanity's sake. For that kind of money, they'd want to inherit a side capable of qualifying regularly and quickly for the Champions League, and they'd expect to inherit a team built for Europe rather than have to spend millions in order to get there. Costly squad rebuilding on top of an inflated sale price would put off Qatari investors. It makes no business sense to pay such a humongous price with no guarantees of short-term success. That answers a lot of questions that Arsenal fans. So if you are an Arsenal fan and if you've been simping Qatari or Al Thani on Twitter, grow up, get a job, have a life. So let's talk about something really important that is actually the Gunner blog thing that they've come up. Is that about yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah. In the midst of the transfer window, the Arsenal hierarchy convened between 1 to 3 times a week to consider their next move. Arteta attended many of these summits to receive updates and voice his opinion. Towards the end of the window, Josh Kroenke travelled to London to be around for the deals and was in attendance at the training ground on the day Arsenal signed Martin Odegaard and Aaron Ramsdale. The additions of Lokonga and Nuno Tavares, meanwhile, were heavily influenced by Edu's scouting department, Arteta even went so far as to thank the recruitment team for pointing him in Tavares' direction. It is for the most part a very collaborative process. Arsenal do accept that they have paid a premium for the English pair of White and Ramsdale. In both instances, it was Arteta who urged the club to complete the deals. They believe, however, that English premium works both ways. When they come to leave Arsenal, their homegrown status should protect their value somewhat. White may have had commanded a higher transfer fee than Rafael Varane, but it is understood to earn less than a third of his wages. White earns around 80k per week with bonuses. Varane's salary at United is at least 300k per week. That means over the next 4 years, including a baseline fee of 34 million, Varane could cost Man United a gross total of 100 million pounds. By that stage, he will be 32 without significant resale value. In the same period, White would cost Arsenal closer to 67 million pounds. Furthermore, he will be 27 at that time and ought to still have considerable value on the transfer market. So that is a bigger thing, that how Arsenal have gone about this. Also, once fees were agreed, it was Arteta who was charged with making phone calls to players, informing them of his plans, persuading them to join Arsenal. In some cases, he spoke with players multiple times, explaining how he saw them fitting into his tactical system. Edu did his share of the talking too. When negotiations with Anderlecht over Lokonga reached a critical point, it was the technical director who stepped in. He led talks with Benfica for Tavares and was heavily involved in the deadline day deal for Takehiro Tomiyasu. And the deal to sign Odegaard was one where Arsenal were prepared to wait, and they had to. When Odegaard saw the writing on the wall, he was more than happy to rejoin Arsenal. Kia Joorabchian helped broker the transfer, representing Real Madrid as an intermediary. Under Edu's instruction, it was Richard Garlick, who brokered the players' contracts. Arsenal have inserted an optional extra year on the deals of each of their summer signings, granting the club more flexibility in their squad planning. This summer, Arsenal have fully dispensed with the inclusion of image rights in new player deals. Only one remaining senior player has those, and it is a contract granted by a previous regime. With a list of targets finalized, it falls to Arteta and Edu to decide upon what action to take. The case of Odegaard was one of absolute consensus. His loan spell had convinced everyone of his quality and strength of character. However, the indications this summer are that Arteta has ultimately wielded the most influence. While White and Tomiyasu were both approved by all departments, it was Arteta's testimony that convinced the hierarchy to proceed with the deals. So that is the major thing that Arsenal have done in this transfer window. The Athletics say when it came to Aaron Ramsdale, Edu and his team advocated for cheaper alternatives with Sheffield United because they were holding out for 35 to 40 for Aaron Ramsdale. Neto was one of those names, but Arteta's conviction in Ramsdale is what won out, and the clubs met in the middle. It was only Arteta who wanted Aaron Ramsdale, and why not? You can see Ramsdale has really plenty of experience for his age. Look at the minutes that he's played, 6,840 minutes. That's even more than Gianluigi Donnarumma. I mean, come on, you know Gianluigi Donnarumma, right? Unai Simon from Athletic Bilbao. He's also a wonderful goalkeeper, man. Unbelievable. Well, talking about it, Wenger says about Arsenal's poor start to the season. Today the club is in good shape. They had 2 tough games against Chelsea and Manchester City. The team has potential and I hope they can come back. So if you can read this, this is how Arsenal got the Ramsdale deal done. So Arteta's most wanted player is like the most wanted Munda Aaron Ramsdale was. Yeah, that is that, and I hope you enjoyed. So finally we have some sort of, I don't know, I think these Twitter outlets are one of the outlets of or mouthpieces of Arsenal, and I'm glad that it's actually like it's coming from Athletic as well. So I'm really glad that a in-depth analysis and something like that is actually coming up, so that we get at least an idea why they signed. Like literally everyone was clueless. Ramsdale for the price tag, Everyone was hating on Ramsdale. I've seen people hate on Ramsdale in my comment section as well. I was not wanting the player at the price, but you know what? Let's see what happens, man. Let's see what happens. But there's some fans who really don't agree literally anything what this recruitment team has done. Well, they have the patience in Arteta and of course what he's carrying out, so they expect the same from the fans as well. Cheers, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.